Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content. When I watch the Browns, I look for players that the Browns clearly are going to have plans for. That's what this video is about. Who are these players that the Browns have plans for going into next year, and what do those plans look like? Let's start with Isaiah McGuire and Alex Wright. I'm going to kind of couple these two players together because they're going to be very similar in how the Browns use them, right? But Isaiah McGuire, we got to start paying attention to this. Right now, he has a 90.4 Pro Football Focus grade, 12 rushing stops, a stop percentage of 6.9. That 90.4 run defense grade on Pro Football Focus is the second highest in the NFL. It is the highest run defender grade in his draft class. I believe he was 2023, so that puts him higher on run defense at least, and let's be very specific about that, right? Run defense, it puts him higher than Will Anderson, Jalen Redmond, like Yaya Diaby, all these guys who won that draft before him. That puts him higher as. Not an insignificant amount of snaps either. He's done this in 174 run defense snaps. That is more than like Will Anderson Jr., and I think Khalil Mack has like 200. So like, it's not a nothing sample that they're pulling from. He's one of the better run defenders that the Cleveland Browns have. And I think he pairs up with Alex Wright nicely because Alex Wright has been a pretty solid pass rusher from the edge position, but he hasn't been a great run defender. Isaiah McGuire has been a pretty damn good run defender, has some potential as a pass rusher. I don't think he's a nothing as a pass rusher. He's honestly like similarly as good as a pass rusher as Alex Wright is. And he's putting up some promising numbers. I think he's second on the team or close to second on the team in pressures. What Isaiah McGuire has been able to do, because kind of flew under the radar, right? Because the Browns aren't playing the greatest football in the world. It's flew under the radar. But what it is impressive. Yeah, he has the second highest pass rush win rate at 14.1, obviously second to Myles Garrett. That's no surprise there. Myles at 24.4%. And then he has 22 pressures, which puts him third on the team. So he's not bad as a pass rusher either. If you look at his true sets, he grades out very well there. So when a quarterback actually holds the ball, he's getting pressures at a high rate. He's being disruptive. They got something in Isaiah McGuire. Now, is he going to be somebody who's good enough to like be an all-pro opposite of Myles Garrett? No, I think you go get that guy in the top 10 of the draft this year, right? That could be Abdul Carter. It could be Mike Hall, who you already have on the roster. It could be, somebody like Mason Graham, who plays interior, right? Like, he's not going to be that guy who anchors it down, but what he can be is like what Sam Hubbard used to be, right? A really good run defender that anchors the other side of their superstar edge rusher, and that can clean up a lot. Browns clearly have a plan for Isaiah McGuire. Now, does that mean starting opposite of Myles? I think that really depends on what happens in this year's draft. There's going to be some edge options that they're not going to close their eyes to, but I don't think that affects the fact that Isaiah McGuire is going to be part of this team's future. Same thing with Alex Wright, who has the added benefit of having the size and length to be able to play consistently on the interior and on the outside. So he's going to be used a ton there. Isaiah McGuire, Alex Wright, they really got something in Isaiah McGuire. Like that's not just like a rotational guy. That is somebody who can definitively start for you going forward and provide you a lot of what Zadarius Smith was, while also being a really good run defender, which Zadarius Smith wasn't. Again, he's grading out right now as the second best run defender in the NFL. The numbers back it up. He's been pretty damn good as a run defender so far in his 175 snaps this year. The second player that I think the Browns have plans for is Mike Hall. Mike Hall is one of the most intriguing players on the Cleveland Browns because he has that super high upside, right? When you watch him play, there are moments where he flashes and shows you that he has the potential to become something really special in brown and orange. The other thing that gets you super excited about Mike Hall is that he's super young. 21 and a half years old, which means at the end of his rookie deal, which would be in 3 seasons, he would be 22, 23, 24, under 25, right? Like a young player. So that means that what he's showing so early is even more impressive because this is a position where you think that it takes years for a player to build up the size, the strength, the knowledge necessary to be able to thrive in that position. So any defensive tackle that's having early success, that's somebody you keep an eye on. A defensive tackle that's having early success 6 months after they've been able to legally drink, I mean, that's somebody you really pay attention to. Now, obviously, there's the off-the-field stuff that you want to worry about with Mike Hall. We'll hope that he had learned a lot from that situation, right? So hopefully he's learned. He's not going to get himself put in a situation like that again. But he has so much potential as a player. And look, this goes to something that I've been begging the Browns to do, and hopefully they complete it this offseason. I have always contained that the conventional wisdom of putting a big edge next to Myles Garrett is flawed strategy because the Browns have tried it. Right, Olivier Vernon in 2019, they did it 2 times with Jadeveon Clowney. Then they went out, got Zadarius Smith for the last 2 years. In every single year, it's not been bad, but it hasn't yielded the results that you would want it to yield. And like even now, without a superstar edge or a Pro Bowl or former Pro Bowl edge on the other side of Myles Garrett, you're not seeing this. You're seeing that Myles is able to do the same stuff that he's always been able to do, regardless of who's on that other edge. Part of that is Isaiah McGuire is playing well, but he's not commanding double teams, right? And the flaw with that strategy when it comes to specifically Myles Garrett is this. He's Myles Garrett, which means there's not a body, a soul in the world that's going to get an offensive coordinator to not double team Myles Garrett. They're always going to double team Myles Garrett. They're never not going to double team Myles Garrett. Sometimes they'll double and chip. He leads the league in double team percentage. He's been somebody who's been double teamed his whole life. He's going to be continued to be double teamed. You could put Terrell Suggs on the other side of that offensive line. They're going to double team Myles Garrett. Because they're going to double team Myles Garrett, they know they're going to be shorthanded on the other side. So what teams end up doing is just rolling away and moving away from that side, or rolling towards that side so that edge rusher is physically further away from the quarterback once that quarterback completes their role. Either way, they pretty much neutralize the other end when it comes to being able to be a super productive sack guy. I think the way to go with building around Myles Garrett is to build a really dominant interior, because you can't shift away from a dominant interior defensive line. You can move those guys and stack them right next to Myles. You can move those guys on the other side of the line and leave Myles alone so that all those guys get two-way goes. But in order to take advantage of the gravity that Myles Garrett guarantees you, right? Myles Garrett is the sun. He's always going to have shit rotate around him as long as he's in his prime. The way to take advantage of that, from my perspective, is with linebackers who can trigger downhill like JOK, guys like Abdul Carter who can move off of where Myles is and play off of where Myles is a lot, or dudes like Mason Graham who are monsters on the inside. And hopefully Mike Hall can continue to be that. And imagine if you get Mason Graham and Mike Hall right next to each other, and then you put Myles Garrett right there. And then you got Isaiah McGuire, really good run defender, developing pass rusher. You can rotate him in and out with Alex Wright. And then the next thing you know, you got one of the best defensive lines of football, a defensive line you can't run against, with Denzel Ward back in coverage. It's going to be really hard to beat that team, no matter who's playing quarterback for the Browns. Mike Hall is a pivotal part of that because he's going to be the guy that you rely on to be the pass rusher. He's been a solid run defender, which I think has been a nice surprise too. But they have plans for Mike Hall. Mike Hall is going to be a part of this team's future as long as he can make sure that he doesn't have any issues pop up like he did this offseason. But yeah, they have plans for him, and I think he is we're gonna shift our focus from thinking about the other guy on the defensive line being the other edge to the other guy on the defensive line being a defensive tackle, because I think that's where it's all going. All right, next guy, Ronnie Hickman. I think the Browns have plans for him. I think he's going to replace Ronnie McLeod's role, and I think he's going to be really good at that, right? Ronnie McLeod plays kind of like a quasi-run defending role, somebody who can kind of hunt, trigger downhill, and be really aggressive on screens, but not necessarily someone who's going to take a lot of risk in coverage. That's Ronnie Hickman to a T. I think he fits that role well. He runs super fast. He's a super smart player. He doesn't make as much sense at free safety because he's a bit too conservative to make any plays out of free safety. That might be a Jim Schwartz thing, because a lot of these free safeties that they play are very conservative when it comes to crashing into plays, or when it comes to, finding the ball and making plays on the ball. The Browns safeties don't do that often, especially under Jim Schwartz. Might be something that he asks for because of how aggressive he is defensively, and it makes sense if that's the case. But if he fills in for Ronnie McLeod's role, I think that'd be a really successful spot for him. And I think, honestly, the Browns will upgrade there, because I think some of the stuff that Ronnie does, especially like when he's like the slot blitzer, when he's like the nickel blitz, when he's like in these like DB blitz packages, he's a little slow now. He's not as fast as he used to be, and he gets there late. I think Ronnie Hickman's going to have more success there, and I think the Browns going to be able to defend the screen a lot better with Ronnie Hickman in that spot there. So I think they have plans for him. And again, that's an undrafted free agent that you got plans for. You look at that 2023 draft, that is a underrated draft. Now, again, no first, second round picks. So it's difficult to get, somebody who's going to be as big as a game changer as like a Myles Garrett or Nick Chubb when you don't have those super high quality picks, but you're getting really good quality players who are going to help this team hopefully for a long time, and like under good money too, which is exactly what this team needs. Ronnie Hickman is a part of that. Cedric Tillman and Jerry Jeudy, clearly the Browns have plans for them. Cedric Tillman going to play more of a Donovan Peoples-Jones role. I think he settles in to doing big guy stuff and number 2 wide receiver stuff, stretching the field, kind of being a deep shot sometimes, being an option to go to. And then Jerry Jeudy's going to do what Amari Cooper did, which is be the route runner, right? Like the Browns have somebody they like to have run routes. They have somebody that they like to always have going downfield to stretch the defense vertically. And then they get a third guy that they do a little bit of both with. Sometimes that guy is underneath, but for the most part, the Browns like to use their tight ends underneath. If that's the case, I think the Browns could draft 2 tight ends, but that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day. But yeah, I think Jerry Jeudy, he's going to fit into that Amari Cooper role. Cedric Tillman, he's going to fit into what used to be the Donovan Peoples-Jones role. Right now it's the Elijah Moore role, but I think that's where Cedric Tillman fits in, right? Somebody to run those deep posts, somebody to run those end zone routes, somebody to run those over routes when it comes to the play action concepts that they like to use, especially when they're rolling. And he'll be really nice there. Think of like, it's similar to how the Falcons use Drake London, right? Like that's kind of how the Browns will want to use Cedric Tillman. Jerry Jeudy, I mean, it's 1-to-1. They're going to use him like Amari Cooper, right? Route guy, going to have him go inside, outside, catch him with the addition of him being a yak guy, right? That you could get the ball in his hands and he's super fast, which Amari Cooper didn't have. So that's going to be how they use Jerry Jeudy. I think they have plans for both those guys. Diabite, man, I've been so impressed with his body of work since he's gotten out here to play for the Cleveland Browns. Again, another undrafted guy that I'm super impressed with, and I think he's going to be critical in how you play with JOK. Now, hopefully JOK gets back from this injury and he has no real long-term effects. I know people are worried that his career might be over. I don't believe that is the case. I had Cam Justice on and talked about that a couple weeks ago. She does not believe that his career is in jeopardy. I think it was just some unfortunate wording that got everybody there. Doesn't seem like his career is at risk. Seems like they're going to not have him play for the rest of the year, but also he's going to be fine for next year. Or at least the hope is that he's going to be fine for next year, which I have no reason not to believe. But JOK, Mahmoud Diabite, those are 2 really athletic linebackers. What I like about Diabite is that he gets dirty, right? Like if he can get a little bit more size on him, I'll be a little bit more comfortable with him as a run defender. But even then, he's been a really solid run defender, right? Outside of JOK and Jordan Hicks, Devin Bush, he's been good. Like, I didn't think he'd be good. I did not think he'd been good. And maybe this is the dark magic of 2024 playing in effect here. But Devin Bush has been good, like legitimately good for this team. He's been a good run defender. He's been a good linebacker. He's been bad in coverage, but you expect that, right? He has 21 stops. 21 stops. That's real. Same thing with Mahmoud Diabate, who's been balling at a similar level. Mahmoud has 21 stops as well. And like significantly, no, same amount of snaps as Devin Bush. Like JOK went down, but you got Jordan Hicks back. You've been playing Devin Bush and Mahmoud Diabate. And I'm not going to lie, I feel really good about the linebacker room right now. Because when JOK comes back, that's going to be a big deal. If you have Jordan Hicks next year, Devin Bush and Mahmoud Diabate, that's a strong four-man rotation because those guys have been playing well. And JOK is the one guy who could cover a little bit, but Jordan Hicks has been done a good job covering there. Maybe you draft another linebacker, but hey, that linebacker room looks pretty good right now. I think the plan for Mahmoud Diabate and Devin Bush, Mahmoud's going to be somebody they focus to be more of a pass rusher, more of a coverage guy, because I think his skill set fits that. But he's also somebody that you can have down there anchor JOK. And if you want to get rid of Jordan Hicks, you feel fine with that because you got Diabate back there. And then Devin Bush is somebody that you're going to have, a lot of rundowns. He has the size to be a decent pass rusher if you want to go ahead and double mug the A gap. Like there's a lot that you could do there with Devin Bush. And Diabate, and give Diabate credit. He's pretty good on the line of scrimmage too. So a lot of things you could do with those guys. They've been playing well. I think the Browns have plans for them and bringing them back next year. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.